the question is, how long has your career been? It's been about
Over 35 years.
35 years, right? Okay. You've witnessed kind of a lot of this stuff with your own eyes around human behavior. Obviously, we're measuring a lot of the same thing. A lot of it comes down to decisions and, the way people act under certain decisions, the way that their long-term and short-term framing can sometimes get into battle with each other. And the key question is, what did you see in behavior that predicted whether a company would scale, or if you ever did, before the numbers showed up?
Good question. I think that one of the things that you see in human behavior is people that they're hiring, people and their process of how they bring people on, or how they interact with their customers. So a lot of that initially drives the success of the company. So you can look back at companies that are selling a product where they have salespeople doing it, and how those salespeople are trained to interact with the understanding of the company dictates a lot of the success of someone using a device like a phone or a device at Palm. And then at Facebook, it's more how they're interacting with their users. How are they responding? How fast are they responding? Are they responding? So a lot of what happens that measures that is, how are they treating people? How are they interacting with people? How are they observing themselves with people? And who are they hiring, and how are those people working with others?
And did you find that, so energy sounded like energy, like the want for well, not necessarily the want for the product to be a success necessarily, it's just the want for the user to have a great experience, or the buyer to have a great experience.
If you think about how we are in real life, we all want people to recognize us, be thoughtful to us, think about us, be open to our ideas. I think it's the same kind of thing when you're working with people. Many people don't want to be told what to do, or what they should like, or how they should view something. So engaging people in those discussions and letting them feel like they're a part of it. The great news about that is, when you do that, you're likely going to learn something yourself.
And then in terms of, obviously you've worked with many fast-growing environments. Some slow, in fact, you told me yesterday that you've done it all, right? It's like the super big revenue slow ones, the middle ground ones, and then the fast ones. Obviously in the faster ones, which is kind of, obviously where we are, the key thing for me is like, is it deterministic that the environment that you're setting up will kind of I guess like the behavior of which we come into this as a small scaling organization, how much impact does that have on growth before the growth happens? Like, and how important is it to get, customer service, the way that we interact with our users, the team, how much of that do you feel is grown or like earned through the growth, or is it kind of better to preset?
So one of the common things I've seen in many, many companies is that we focus on sales and not retention. And so you hear the word churn. So for example, if you look back at the long distance companies, once upon a time, they're acquiring new customers as fast as they can. They're even doing promotions. Back then they would give you a check if you would sign up with them, but nobody was paying attention to what was falling off. So consumers get really smart, and what they would do is they'd spend a little bit of time with you, and then get the check from the next person moved to them, and then get the check person moved to them. And the company itself is focused on the new acquisition, not on what's happening as it's falling out the bottom.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we're so obsessed with CAC and customer acquisition, but actually, to be honest with you, in the research that we've been doing, there seems to be a strong lack of, well, at least a more of a lack of focus on retention for sure than acquisition. Why do you think that is? Because it's less exciting, or like it doesn't matter?
People are trying to make their numbers.
Right, they're trying to make their numbers so they can raise more money. Or
trying to make more their numbers. And so if you look at it, in some cases, people said they made the right decision because they were able to make their numbers, able to get more money. But if you also look at it from the standpoint of what it costs to get that customer and what it's going to cost to get the next customer, at some point, retaining the customer is really important, because then people get into this whole concept of growing the customer, the lifetime value of a customer, not just the acquisition. I think the same thing happens with people as they hire them.
Yeah.
They're trying to reach their goals and reaching their head count and what they've gotten approved. And if you give too much attention to that and not paying attention to the people that are already with you, then suddenly you're in this battle of bringing people in, but you're making your number. At the same time, you're creating a firestorm because
So people are actually
staying.
people are quoting headcount. Is that a thing? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
It's a measure of your success is if you've been allocated money to bring people on board, how are you doing it?
Yeah. You're using it, right? You're using it. Interesting. And then in terms of like the fast growers, obviously there's a strong, chaotic, somewhat feel to growing fast, employing fast, growing revenues fast.
Chaotic. It's a great
so
word.
how do you manage?
Well, you learn to manage chaos because you're moving fast, and then there's a great commercial that was out. I don't know if you ever saw it, where it was a company. It was like a web-based company when the internet went crazy, and they had put a product out there, and they were all sitting around watching this meter that was showing the number of customers, and it was really slow, and they were all freaking out. And then all of a sudden, the meter started going really, really fast and really, really fast, and they were elated, and then they freaked out because they had brought on so many people, they weren't prepared for it. So I think that's where the balance comes in, is when you're, first of all, when you're setting hiring standards of how many you need, when you're setting forecasts to make sure you're being realistic, that you can also manage through that and manage that chaos. So if you take on more people than you can hire fast enough to support, the people you brought on as customers aren't going to be happy.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it does actually have an impact. So like you grow fast and you hire fast, and then you lose it with customers because the attention's just not there, or that you've made a mistake up the line. So like in those best environments you've ever seen, in the best spaces you've ever been in, obviously I'm assuming that they will have put in the best practices, the best setup process for this. Like did you ever were you ever with a company where you thought this company's going for it, this company's going to make it, like they've got the right?
I think that it's also being willing to iterate.
Yeah,
it's knowing that whatever you created, your business is moving fast. And a lot of new companies, once you start making progress, suddenly you've got competitors you didn't know you had. And now they've introduced something new that you came in today and had no idea you were going to get this thing out of left field. I think that's where the challenge comes in, of how you manage those things that are a surprise to you. So the best played forecasts, the best plans, the best everything, don't take into account the surprise that's going to happen. So I can remember, for example, at Facebook, where we never had enough space. So you would acquire more space and everybody would have breathing room and feel like, oh my gosh, I can breathe. I'm not sitting on top of each other, and people sharing desks, which people don't like to do necessarily. And then the next thing you know, you're in the same situation. There's a great story that I have where my team, we grew so fast we were out of space, there was no way to put them. And so the only option was to move these couches and put in these long tables. And when I looked at it, it felt like kindergarten to me. And I was like, how am I going to tell these people when they come into work? They're all sitting like kindergarten. So I decided, I made it look like kindergarten. I put butcher paper all over the tables. I put crayons. They came in and they had a ball. We ended up framing those things and hanging them in the office eventually, because it was only for a month or so until we could acquire more space. So it's those kinds of things that you don't expect to happen. And the great news is they happen because you're experiencing success. If you set yourself up for that, then you're spending money before you need to. So how do you be nimble? How do you build forecasts? How do you build forecasts about the forecast? That there's like, what if this goes faster? What if this doesn't go as fast? What are my levers? Where can I push different things or pull back on things? Or suddenly you have an expense you didn't expect, or suddenly there's a legal issue that you have to deal with, or suddenly there's some new player that's at the table, or you hire somebody new that has a brilliant idea you didn't account for. It's the right thing to do, but you didn't account for it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like you're kind of like running plays a little bit. You're like building a playbook for like different things happening at different stages.
Yes.
And you know, you talked to me yesterday about Facebook growth. You mentioned that obviously it was growing like outrageously fast in terms of, I'm assuming, user base.
User
Right.
base,
And then
yeah.
so your team built but you were in charge of the people. Was it people side and customer
I
service?
was in the customer, what was called
Cust-
at the time customer operations.
Nice,
And they
okay.
changed it eventually to user operations, then changed it back to customer operations. And
So tell me more about user operations, because that interests me.
well, what was interesting about that is when I first started there, they were using an only email with an email management system that was off the shelf and not capable of doing the
Yeah.
volume that happened. And so then you get into the whole conversation of build versus buy. Well, it was a technology company.
Right,
They
so
wanted to build it. So there's no time to build it because they're building stuff for sales. And so you get into this position of trying to catch up. So then they're bolting things onto it to make it work. And there was nothing. There were no queues in the beginning. There were no way of assigning work. That all happened over time. But I think the energy of the growth, especially if you're celebrating it, and this is a good thing, and people are experiencing that part of it, people are willing to bend and stretch. But at some point, if the tools don't keep up, which is really, really hard because you're building tools to support sales, you're building tools to support technology, and often the customer part of it is left behind until suddenly you're throwing so many bodies at it.
Do you know what? You're so right. You build so much for sales, you forget about the things behind it. And that's actually what I want to talk about today with the team, is more on user operations and customer service, and how do we build that first, to be
Well,
honest.
if you think about, you're building sales fast because you have to make your sales quotas, you have to make the money.
It's all the VCs carry,
So
right?
and you have a limited number of people, and if you're successful, that's where you are. And so you can only hire so fast. At Facebook, we had a luxury of everybody was 20, 21, fresh out of school.
Yeah.
So we had sort of had a bit of an unlimited supply of new grads. Facebook was only in colleges at the time. It was their dream job. So we had so many people wanting to work with us. It was more a function of how do you weed out the people you don't want and make that happen. Plus, if you can think about it, when I started there, everyone, it's their first real job. They have no supervisor experience. They have no knowledge of how to interview. And there I was coming along, old enough to be their father, with the experience. And I can remember at about 40 employees reporting to me. I'm like, this isn't sustainable. So I had to, in the middle of all that fast growth, start training people, identifying people who could be the future leaders, to start teaching them how to do everything from interviewing to how do you supervise people, how do you manage people, how do you do that. It really, our business unit became unique to itself. We got to run it, which was really great, which has happened to me a number of times in my career, where you're the person that understands it, so you get to manage it and run with it, which is great. But keeping up with the growth is
hard.
Yeah, right? Because you're throwing bodies at is not the answer all the time.
No.
But
No.
if it gets the work done, it gets the work done.
Yeah.
But it's also the very expensive way.
No, exactly. And some of the research that we're doing is so across the sales process, there's usually like what they're looking for, something that makes them not want to do it. Like, I'm looking for one thing, and then there's usually about a 72-hour window of, we call it the 72-hour remorse window. Usually when they've made a decision, and they're like, ooh, it's quite fragile. And then what we've seen is there's kind of like key distinct trust cycles that form after you've purchased something and you're in a client relationship. And it's a bit like a visit count thing. Like every time that a visit comes into this cup, the cup gets stronger. But so over time you could throw the cup at the wall and the cup wouldn't break because it would be getting stronger. But it's interesting that the modeling of that, it's very easy to forget that you are maintaining a relationship after a sale, still at the same level.
A lot of times what happens is you make the sale, you're very high touch to get them through the conversion, and then you back off because you're focused on the new sales.
Yeah.
Well, suddenly you set this expectation, but you need to have that expectation. One of the things I found in many high growth companies is they have sales and service, and they don't have something, whatever you might want to call it, that is about implementation. Salespeople typically aren't the ones that implement. Service people aren't the ones that do that either. They can be a subset of it. But there's this interesting period of time when you make a sale before the customer's up and running and everything is running smoothly.
It's a fragile window.
It's a very fragile window, and the same window you're just speaking of when they can easily have buyer's remorse. So it's high touch. Well, if you're not careful, you get them from sales, you get them in implementation to high touch, then you turn them over to service. Well, the ratio of, let's just say, agent to customer becomes very different, and now they're not experiencing as high touch. So how do you use tools? How do you use, today we have luxury of technology can help fill in some of those blanks. What expectations did you set?
Yeah, and also then keeping the expectation management between sales and service as well is often very difficult.
It is.
Because they want the sale, right? So they push it too hard. And
it's where I've spent a lot of my time.
Yeah, dude, I'm so excited to work with you on this stuff.
Yeah,
because the research is unbelievable for this.
Teaching people this idea that you don't have sales without service, and you don't have service without sales. So like at Walmart, I kept getting hit because service is looked at as a cost center. And so I came up, because it is, you're not selling anything, it's costing you money, and it's expensive because you have the most expensive thing in your business, which is usually headcount. And so I can remember thinking about that, and I introduced sales and service. So for example, if I'm buying for your baby, you're getting ready to buy your holiday toys for the baby. The worst thing that could happen to you is that you don't have the batteries to run it when they open it. Yeah. So you sell the batteries, so you're suddenly now selling in service, or whatever it is you're buying. Whatever your business is, how do you integrate this idea that service and sales go hand in hand? They're not exclusive.
They're not exclusive at all. They're completely hand in hand. And actually, it's a sequence motion of, take them through the sale, take them through the implementation, take them into this hopefully very long retention cycle. That's why we're training Shannon in retention, because in theory, the sequencing of her intelligence can be taken forever.
Which is the beauty of today. Where you can use AI and some other tools that help you fill in these blanks.
And I think that the kind of like our mission is very clear. It's AI. The implementation of AI over the last 4 or 5 years has been somewhat disastrous in terms of the economics. I think the return on AI capital in the last few years has been about 5%, and the return on human capital is even worse, because humans still hold the accountability layer, the trust layer, right? They still hold that, and it's like, well, it's all good if the AI, catapults the economy by 10x, but if we don't increase our human capital return by 10x, then jobs will be lost. And it's kind of this middle ground of where we sit is like, we're human first. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I really like that sales implementation service angle that you mentioned. We've kind of gone with sales and then retention, but in reality, service. Because I think also, just to finish on this point, because we'll get to the team then, but it's very easy then to make service all about cross-selling, upselling, downselling. I think that often then becomes a sales environment as well. And it's like, I'm not just here to milk as many dollars out of you as I can. I'm here to make you have a great time. And if you have a great time, you trust me. And if you trust me, you buy more. And it's like, that's it really.
I think the other thing that becomes a pitfall people fall into is that salespeople and service people can do each other's jobs. And typically the mindset of somebody who sells is not the mindset of somebody who serves. The mindset of somebody who serves is not to sell by the nature of how they're defined. So if you're going to try and make those into one individual, you have a challenge. Now you can train somebody if they have interest, but a lot of people that are interested in servicing and helping resolve problems aren't necessarily the salesperson. They're selling you something to overcome your problem, not to fix the problem you're having with the product you bought. So how do you manage through that? Because what I've seen many times is sales needs help. Let's get service people involved, or service needs help.
They then get OTT
salespeople.
and then
And it can be one of the biggest disasters you have.
Such a disaster. And it's actually interesting, because you know, and we'll talk more about user operations today, but like, yeah, you're right, because the service team gets in. We witnessed this actually, you know, over the last couple of years working with expertise sellers. It's like they're extremely good at their job, but that kind of like pre-game battle of the sales funnel is difficult.
Or they start pointing fingers at each other.
Yeah.
Very dangerous of what sales did or what service did. And then suddenly you have a fractured environment, and who gets to feel it? The customer ends up feeling it.